Recording in progress. All right, here we go, Deborah.
That was just as weird as when I said good evening a second ago to you.
That was
Before
weird. Yeah, Deb came on. She's like, "Good evening." Like, "Good
Jazz,
evening."
yeah,
It's like she forgot.
Jazz missed it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why I did that, but before you logged on, Jazz, I said, yeah, I was like, good evening. And he was just like, why, what? I don't know. We don't
It
greet each
creeped me out. It was,
other.
yeah. I'm like, this is not Deb. This is an imposter. I don't believe it's her.
I,
Weird.
I mean, no one says good evening unless you're like a merc.
That's well. There's
We've
some,
had,
hey, you know what?
okay.
There's some signs. There's some signs that she may be. So that's why do you think we do this thing on Zoom now? Scared for my life and my guest life. So there we go. So, anyways, you guys don't need to hear this. You guys hear this every week when we don't have a guest.
Yeah.
Deb, who is our awesome guest today?
We have, I'm craving cookies already. We have Jas Deoja, who is the cookie boss. I want to hear all about it. I'm looking at your Instagram right now and I'm just like, oh my God, I want a cookie so bad. So I want to know everything. I want to know how you started it. So anyway, I'm not great at introductions, but you're in El Dorado Hills, right? Your place?
Yeah, I'm originally at the East Bay, but I live in El Dorado Hills now, and that's where I currently operate my small business from. And I mean, I have the biggest sweet tooth that I know of. I don't know anybody that loves sweets more than I do. I've always baked, and every time I see a baked good, I'm always like, oh, I can make that at home. And originally, my baking started when I had gone to Paris and I had tasted a macaron for the first time. And when I came back to the States, I realized that they were like $4 or $5 each for just one. And so I was like, I got to learn how to make that. And so I just looked it up, started learning how to, bake macarons. And, obviously, I mean, I work, I have a full-time job. I work for the state of California. And the baking is just kind of more of a passion. And so the cookie business, how that started was in the beginning of 2022. My son's birthday is in January, and I couldn't find a baker to make decorated sugar cookies. He really wanted some video game cookies, and I couldn't find a baker available because everybody was either too busy with Christmas or they just were too exhausted from the holidays. So they were telling me, no, sorry, we can't make cookies. And then the one baker I did find, she was charging like an arm and a leg, what I thought was an arm and a leg at the time. And so I looked it up, and I'm just a researcher by nature. So I looked it up on YouTube, I looked up Pinterest, I looked up all the, equipment I'm going to need and everything like that. And I made him cookies for his birthday. And so when we invited other parents and their kids, the moms asked like, oh, who made these cookies? And I told them that I made them. And they were pretty impressed with it. And I was just thinking like, okay, it's not a big deal. So I started making cookies just for fun for other kids' birthdays. And then it just kind of started spreading like wildfire, where other parents were asking like, oh, could you make cookies for my kid's birthday and so. And, for a minute, it was fine to make it for friends, but then other people started asking, and I didn't feel comfortable charging them because it wasn't really a business. And I just felt weird about it because it was just something I was doing as a hobby. So then in March 2022, I decided, okay, I'm going to make this thing official. And that's how the Cookie Boss was born. And at first I thought maybe just like my friends' parents would, come to me, or maybe just like my relatives, because, just they would think like, oh, let's support her. But then like, I remember still getting my first public customer, where I didn't know this person. It was like just a community member that reached out to me. And I was like, oh my God, I have a real customer. And cookies, and my husband's like, who are you making those cookies for? And I was like, it's a real paying, like a customer that I don't know.
Wow.
And
big deal.
just like after that, it was just like it kicked off, and now I'm the cookie boss, and I do weekend events, and people order cookies from me.
That's
awesome.
crazy because because you said 2022, right, is when this thing kind of really launched. And it based on your Instagram. And if you guys haven't followed her yet, pause real quick, go follow her, and then come back to this episode, because the stuff that you do is really impressive. And the detail on all the cookies and the amount of cookies you do. Like if I didn't know, like if we weren't having this conversation right now, I would assume you've been doing this for years because it looks that good. And I'm not just saying that because you're on the podcast, but the reason you're on the podcast is because it looks so good. So, like that's just crazy to me. Like I would have never guessed that it was just, within the past couple of years.
It escalated very quickly. If you look behind me, I have an entire wall of cookie cutters.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. It just, for a while, I was just trying to kind of live out of like a shoebox where I just had like 10 cookie cutters. And then slowly it just started just piling up. And before you know it, I have a whole room dedicated just to the small business. And it's just growing.
Nice. Do you have a mermaid cookie cutter back there?
I do. I absolutely do. I have
There we go.
it's back actually right here. And my husband actually built this wall for me. There's the mermaid.
Oh no,
that
Jazz,
mermaid
you don't even know what you just
tail.
did. She loves mermaids, and this is a thing every week. I'm like, oh no.
Well,
So
that's good to know. I always, whenever I meet someone, I'm like, here's the seashell, here's the mermaid. So that's why I built the wall back there, because whenever a customer would ask me for a theme,
Yeah.
I would be rummaging through this huge bin and sometimes even get cuts on my hand because I'm like rummaging through like hundreds of cookie cutters. So now if somebody asks me like a mermaid cookie, I'm like, boom, mermaid cookie, let's go.
I love it. I love how you're like, actually, I do. You guys should have seen, if you guys aren't watching on YouTube, she literally just like reached back behind her and like pulled out a cute little mermaid tail and a seashell like in 2 seconds. That's genius. I've never seen anything, or I wouldn't think that you would do that, put all your cookie cutters on a wall. And that's a lot of cookie cutters. Oh my God. So many.
oh, it's like you robbed a Michael's. You know what I mean? And you just like stole it from the supply truck and just took them all home, because that is a ridiculous amount. And my mom used to have a ton of cookie cutters. It doesn't even compare to what you have behind you. That's wild.
Yeah, it actually goes up. That's not even all of it. It's to the ceiling.
Wow.
That's awesome.
At first,
So-
well, no, looking behind you at first, I'm like, are those scrunchies? And I'm like, no, they have to be cookie. There's no way. That was just the first thing. I couldn't quite tell, but like, as soon as she said cookie cutters, I'm like, well, duh, it's all her cookie stuff, but there's so many. That's awesome.
But
That's
it's weird. I have hundreds of them, but still, I'll get a call for a cookie order. And of course, the order that they want, it's like, I don't have a cookie cutter for that. So I'll call up like my local friend who has a 3D printer, say, hey, I need this cookie cutter real quick. Can you please, I promise I'll like buy you a coffee if you could just print this for me tonight.
Oh, that's so cool though. So you have the hookup, you have someone who can like custom make you cookie cutters. That's
Yeah, I mean,
cool.
so crazy. I've bought so much equipment since I opened up my business. And so a 3D printer is on my list. I just have to
Nice.
because I just have so many I have like an edible ink printer, so I can like print anything that anybody, if you can send me an email of a picture, I can put it on a cookie. I have like mixers, and there's just so much equipment around the house. It's unbelievable to me. When I opened up this business last year, I just thought it would be like, I have a cookie tray, maybe I have a piping bag, and now it's taken over my house and I love it.
That is awesome.
Well, just recently you posted you had the Snoop cookies, the Snoop Dogg cookies, which were pretty cool. Was that today or yesterday?
That was this morning, yeah. And so
This morning. That was pretty cool. Like that, I don't know whose birthday party that was for, but that was awesome.
yeah, it's a cookie order for one of my Instagram followers. It's her cousin's birthday, and she's a huge Snoop Dogg fan. And so she kind of just let me take the creative lead on it. And so I thought it would be hilarious if we just put some like Snoop Dogg-esque phrases on there, like
Yeah.
it's your birthday sizzle.
Yeah. No, it turned out amazing. Right. So what's I mean, obviously, like you said, you have a ton of cookie cutters behind you. And if you get some random one that you don't have, you have a friend that can make them. What's the most bizarre cookie order that you received? Like design or theme? Like what would be the most like, this is interesting?
Well, it's actually one that's coming up, and I'm probably not going to post pictures of it or even talk about it because it's definitely one of those like not safe for work type. It's a bachelorette party cookie
I
order.
kind of figured, yeah.
So those I post online because I do have. I mean, I have some limitations about what I put on social media. But the most interesting order I would say I got was back in December, and it was a Gothic Christmas party. And it was the weirdest thing because it's such a contradiction, right? Where
Sure.
Christmas is jolly, happy holiday, where it's like all about snow and gingerbread and just everything so warm and fuzzy. But then it was a Gothic party, which was really dark and like, obviously Gothic. So I had never heard of a Gothic Christmas party. And even when I tried researching on Google, like, Gothic Christmas theme, nothing really comes up. It's just a very contradictory theme. So I think that was probably my most favorite order to do, because I really had to kind of dig deep and think to myself. And, the customer had just given me complete autonomy and creative lead. She was like, it's a Gothic Christmas party. I really don't know, what that means, but just make me a cookie order.
Okay.
So or like a skeleton snow globe, because snow globe is like very Christmassy, but then like I put a skeleton in it holding like a axe.
Oh, geez.
Kind of Tim Burton-y kind
Yeah,
of.
Nightmare Before Christmas for sure.
Yeah. I can send you guys a picture of it, but that was probably my most interesting order that I had done to date.
No, that would be, that'd be a really wild order for sure. Cause like you said, you're expecting to get all of this like white and red and green stuff. And it's like, no, black, white, gray, keep it just very monotone. That's crazy.
I did. I made it dark.
Oh, I bet. That's the kind of cookie that would like leave someone's tongue and teeth black, right?
Oh yeah. The black cookies definitely. There, yeah. I usually try hand painting my cookies though. I don't really like to saturate my icing with a lot of food color because first of all, just try avoiding the chemical. Second of all, it does kind of make the cookie a little bit bitter. So I usually put white icing on the cookie and then I actually paint it with this edible powder sugar paint that I have. And so it's just the top of the layer of the cookie that gets the color. So those types of cookies don't really dye your mouth. And again,
Nice.
the taste. So it does take a little bit more hand work and more time, but I'm willing to kind of go the extra mile.
Well, I'm sure customers really appreciate that too. Well, and you mentioned something kind of interesting, saying that this person who ordered the Gothic Christmas cookies just gave you complete autonomy. Like how often do they just give you the complete creative freedom versus like they want something very specific? And then which one do you prefer? Do you have a preference which way you design cookies?
I definitely prefer the autonomy. I love just kind of taking the lead. And if someone just tells me the theme, they can tell me the color and kind of like the palette, because I mean, if they have a very pastel type of party, I don't want to go and give them vivid, bright colors. So I like to know the theme. I like to know kind of the color palette. But then from that point, I'm totally fine taking the reins. I also don't mind if they do give me some pictures to help inspire what they want in their cookie order, because if they're looking for something very specific, I'll go with that. I don't like to recreate other people's orders. So if they send me some pictures of someone else's cookie, I'm not just going to replicate that. I usually say, okay, I'll use it for inspiration, but I'm going to put my own kind of, twist on it. But I would say most of my orders, my customers usually give me autonomy. They want the cookie boss to just kind of make them their cookies, right? They're not calling like a regular grocery store and saying, this is what I want. I think they come to me because they want my art, and it's not just for me, but for a lot of cookiers out there. I think that's why these small businesses thrive, because customers just they're paying for the art. They're not really, coming in and trying to say, okay, give me this copy machine type of cookie.
Yeah.
Sure.
I love it. It's kind of like when I go to my tattoo artist and I'm like, hey, I want flowers on my shoulder. And that's all I have to say. And I let him draw it up and I'm like, that looks great. Cause I just, obviously I've seen his work. I trust him. So when people see your work, whether it's on Instagram or they've ordered from me before, that's a huge compliment, because they're like, go for it, because we know that it's going to be good no matter how you want to create it. So that must be fun for you too.
It really is. A lot of my customers, they'll come to me because they've attended someone else's party and they've seen my cookies there. And they'll say, I was at so-and-so's party and your cookies were there. And now I want to place an order for my, event. And this is kind of what the theme is. This is what we're celebrating. And then that's all they leave it at. And then I just basically draft up some designs and I send it their way. And then I kind of let them know, like, and sometimes they don't even customers don't even know kind of what to provide to help inspire their order. And I'll ask them some really off the cuff questions, and they'll be like, we didn't even consider that something like, providing you pictures of the party decor, or giving you the invitation, or just I have, sometimes I have husbands call me. They want to order cookies for their wives, for their wives' milestone birthday or anniversary or something. And I'll ask them questions about their wives, and they'll have to go do some recon work because it's things that, they maybe didn't consider. And so I really love doing that kind of investigative work to find out, how can I make this cookie order so special for this one person? In fact, I had another customer order cookies one time where it was like this Beyonce Coachella. That's the other one. I should have told you when you asked me what's the most interesting cookie order. It was the Beyonce Coachella cookie. And instead of Coachella, I used the recipient's name. Her name is Roxy, so I used Roxchella. And just by tweaking that and putting that on a cookie, when the cookies were presented to her, she actually cried because she looked at the cookies and she looked at how much detail and thought and how customized it was just for her, that it moved her to tears because someone put so much thought into creating something so special for her. At the end of the day, I always tell everybody, I'm like, it's not just about cookies. It's really the gift of thought that, customers put into ordering this for their recipient.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. Well, that's obviously, this is called Connectable. And so the whole idea is connecting with people and connecting our audience with people like yourself who are doing awesome things, and then vice versa, hopefully exposing what you do to a whole group of people that had no idea until just now. But I like the idea that this thing that you're doing, the service that you're offering, obviously there's some financial benefit for you, but something that's even greater than that is you are helping people connect with their party, right? They're trying to put this great party on. They bring these cookies in, and you're connecting them to joy, basically, right? You're connecting them in this way that no other person can do, in the same way that you can. And I think that's a pretty cool thing. And I imagine that one of the questions I had for you is, when someone shares a picture of your cookie on Instagram, or when someone reaches out and, shares, says, like you said, hey, I saw your work, I want to order from you too. What is that feeling like when you get that response, or when someone tags you in a post and they're really excited about the final product? I can't even imagine what that's like, but from your perspective, what is that like?
Well, I will say, and I've said this before, but it is a little bit of a selfish process for me, because no one comes to my house to pick up their cookies unhappy. They're walking up to my house, they're smiling, they're excited to see their cookies, they're skipping out of here with their cookies. They're calling me back and saying, oh my gosh, everybody loved them. And that brings me so much joy to see people coming to my house so happy and leaving happy. And it's just, like I say, it's a selfish thing to just absorb all this joy from my customers, right? And so that's kind of one of the things that really attracts me to doing this, is that I know I'm making this positive impact on people where they're enjoying something so much, and it's a service I'm providing to them that is further creating joy at their events for their kids or their relatives, or even in the cases of making memorial cookies, remembering somebody and putting, the thought of, things that, someone who's passed away, just putting their memory on a cookie. Just the feeling of moving people's emotions, I think, is what really kind of keeps me addicted to this business. And it's about building community. It's about sharing joy. It's about connecting with people. One of the things that I'm currently in the process of trying to develop is creating a nonprofit organization where I can gather up volunteer bakers in the local area to provide custom cookies to underprivileged children who are in foster care, or who are, categorically in poverty. Because if you think about it, these custom cookies are something that right now are being ordered by obviously parents that can afford them for their kids' parties, or, corporations who order them for their parties. Custom sugar cookies that are decorated are not, they're not I don't want to say not affordable, but it is definitely a luxury item that's more of a want than it is a need. And I don't know, I mean, most of my followers know this, but my day job is I work for the Department of Social Services. And so that's kind of where my heart lies. And I think that that's really what keeps me doing what I'm doing, is because making these cookies is kind of like a social service, if you know, if you think about it, because like I said, it's helping a need out there. It's making people happy. But then I think about my actual work where I work for social services, you know, serving this vulnerable population of California. And I think about these children in foster care. I myself grew up in a situation where I had a single mom. I had three sisters, and we were growing up in impoverished conditions. And custom cookies isn't something I could ever imagine getting as a child. So then I think about those children that are out there that are, you know, going through the foster care system, or who don't even get a cake, let alone custom cookies on their birthday. And I want to really try bringing that forth and thinking about how can I, along with all my, you know, sister and brother bakers in the community, bring it so that we can help share that joy to this, you know, vulnerable population out there. So that's something that's in development right now. It's something I'm really looking forward to. But I feel like you know, hopefully I have enough street cred with the baker world to create a mission like this, where, you know, the motto of my business is baking the world a better place. And yes, you know, I feel like I'm doing that right now with my paying customers, but I really, really want to start an organization where we can just really help our local community. Other things I do is, you know, I sponsor the local soccer club here in El Dorado Hills, so that we can provide scholarships to the soccer players, the members that are in the club. And this summer, I'm also helping to sponsor my son's swim team. He's on the Taz swim team in El Dorado Hills.
Oh,
So it's really
nice.
about giving back to the community. I'm not just doing this cookie business. I mean, anyone who's in the cookie business is not doing it to get rich. It's a lot of work. It's long hours. It's no sleep. You know, but I'm really trying to find a way to help connect my small business and how I can support and give back to my community, because it is full circle. So that's kind of, you know, what I'm hoping to do with this. It's all just unfolding real time, as you know, you all are watching as I'm experiencing it.
That's awesome. I love everything
Yeah.
that you said. And it's crazy because one of the questions I had for you had to do with community and how important your involvement is in the community. It's like you read my notes, because that was like, that was an even better answer than I could have expected. And that like which Deb and I have talked about before, like that's kind of like, those are like the surprise answers that we get sometimes that like just make this so much fun. Cause like I had no idea that any of that was going on behind the scenes for you, but I'm really glad that you shared all that. And, you know, when that gets off the ground and going, we would love to have you back on and talk more specifically about that, because that's pretty cool.
Thank you so much. And absolutely, all the support I can get, you know, I'm rallying for it. So it's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of researching. And again, I'm doing all of this on my, you know, the free time that I have. So just really trying to get it lifted off in talks with my friends. I have some friends who run a nonprofit organization. So I feel like I have a really good group. And, you know, that's the thing. That's the important thing about building networks and having community around you, is learning from each other and learning from each other's strengths. I think it's so important to make connections so that I myself can help someone if they need it in a certain area. But then, like, if me, like, I don't know the first thing about running, you know, if you asked me last year if I knew anything about running a small business, I would tell you, heck no, you know, and now here I am. But now, you know, I have this other aspiration of wanting to get this nonprofit off the ground, and I don't know anything about it. So hopefully when you talk to me again next time,
Yeah.
I'll be more knowledgeable. I think it's just, there's never a point in life where you've learned everything. I think constant growing and learning is so important, and no one should ever just stop aspiring to learn more.
Yeah, I love it. And then once you obviously once you find something that you're really passionate about, it's hard to stop. Like Josh and I have talked about that too. Like when you find something that just really gets you excited, it's almost like, you know, you are meant to do this and you love doing it because you just keep going. Even like you said, like you do it on your free time, like you have a full-time job. And so the things that you do outside of that, like that is telling that that's something that you're passionate about. And it's a talent you have. And sometimes it's rare to match a talent with something you're really excited about and you want to keep doing, and for it to, you know, better the community and make people smile. Like it's a big deal to find that. So I'm hoping that anyone listening to this will just try to think of what makes them happy and what they're talented at and something that can help everybody. So, it's hard to find that, but so it just takes time, and everyone has their own timing with things, but hopefully someone listening to this, it'll inspire them to find their own, inspiration. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I feel like, and I just want to point this out too. I feel like everything you just said was, like I said, was awesome. I feel like she's kind of coming for our job, because like this, what she said in like the last 2 minutes was way better than we've said in 131 episodes. So just and Jas, just so you know, if you ever get tired of doing the cookie thing and you want to host a podcast, just let me know. I can kick Deb out, because sometimes she doesn't even show up, and I'm not even sure she really wants to be here. So just so you know, just keep it in mind. Just keep it in mind.
I've threatened to give my 2 weeks many times, but I'm still here. So good fill in for me. Just kidding. We like to tease each other a lot. So
I know
this is
a dynamic duo. I can't imagine Josh without Deb and Deb without Josh.
Thank you. That's very nice to say. Sometimes we joke on the podcast with people that we don't know, and they look at us like, I can't believe these two are talking to each other like this. Why did I agree to do this podcast? So I'm glad you're not like that. Thank you so much.
She knows.
I do want to point out something that Deb was talking about was, when you enjoy something so much, you find the time to do it, right? And I'm sure you know this better than anybody. You have a full-time job. You're doing all these different things. You have other things that you want to do. And one of the things I think people sometimes struggle with is like, how do I figure out how to do it? But I've always said, like, if you're truly passionate about something, you will find a way to make it work. Even if you have a crazy schedule, kids, family, all that, you'll make it work. Now, I've seen, like I said, we've been following you for a little while. I've seen the videos about you staying up super late, doing cookies. What is the latest that you've had to stay up to finish an order? Or maybe earliest?
Well, I will say, when I first started this cookie business, now I've gotten a little bit wiser, and I, put boundaries in place, I would say when I first started the business, one time I was up until about 4 a.m.
Ooh,
and
man.
Summer hours. And I remember thinking like, oh, is the sun coming up? Maybe I should go to sleep before the birds start, tweeting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
But let me ask you this though. When you had that moment, there was probably part of you that's like, but it's almost time to wake up. Do I just push through and keep going? Right.
Yeah, totally. And then I have some cousins that are doctors, and recently we were at
Oh no.
months ago. And I don't know how the conversation always ends up about health. I mean, obviously they're doctors. So
Sure.
We're going around the table and everybody's talking about their ailments and, what's bothering them, their liver. And, we're all inching towards 40. So that's typical conversation. And so when the circle came around to me, I was put on blast for my lack of sleep. And my cousin says, she's like, you're going to have a stroke. You are literally going to have a stroke. You're going to have a heart attack and you're going to die because you're not getting enough sleep. And then I don't know if it was just like, me thinking that, okay, she mentioned this. So I'm like laying there one night and I was like, am I having chest pains? Am I going to? Oh, no. And I was like, I think I was just having a anxiety attack or maybe a panic attack. I don't know. My palms were sweaty. But it's just like things like that get in my head. And then I'm like, oh my God, I don't want the last thing I see before I die being a banana cookie cutter. So start sleeping better.
Yeah,
That's funny.
Obviously, that's still a challenge. But even before the cookies, I was already not really a very good sleeper. I just I'll lay in bed, but then I have like a gajillion things running through my head where I'm already trying to plan for like 3 weeks out. So the cookies just kind of filled in the time of me already being awake.
That's funny. Now, obviously, you were joking about the banana cookie cutter, but if you were to go, go out while you're baking cookies, which cookie cutter would you prefer to be like the last thing you see before you basically, kick the can?
Ooh, that's an excellent question.
She turns back to look at her board of cookie cutters. She's like, which one? I love it.
And for the sake of me, please don't say the mermaid.
Well, not the mermaid.
Oh, thank God.
There's like I'm not a very religious person, but I would hope maybe a religious symbol cookie cutter.
Probably a safe option, yeah.
Or something. I'll say God's name, and I'm like, when I'm just sitting on a normal basis, why am I not praising God then? I'm only when I'm scared or thinking about praise God's name.
Yeah.
So
That
I think
makes sense.
that's the answer. That's the answer that's going to get me into heaven. It would be a religious cookie cutter.
A cross
That's
or
probably
something.
good.
Oh, look at that. I have a cross cookie cutter right
Oh,
there.
see, there you go. Just in case. Just in case. I'll tell you what, the one I would not want to see is that gothic Christmas cookie. I'm like, if I see that last, whoo, it's like a horror movie.
I did make one that was a Reaper.
Well, maybe it's fitting then. I don't know.
One of those gothic Christmas cookies. That's
Sure.
pretty fun.
What's the do you ship cookies too?
So
to
I
people?
I ship within California, just within the state of California because of the type of permit that I have. I have gotten a few requests from like international, like Canada or New York, and I'm like, I can't do it because my permit doesn't allow that.
Have
You're
you
like,
have
you
you
can
had anybody
come
that's wanted to make the trip? It's like, okay, I understand that. Where do you live? I'll make the trip from Canada to pick up those cookies.
What actually had someone have me ship them to their relative in California, and then their relative shipped it to them.
Oh,
Wow.
that's smart. That makes sense.
Cartel. So I wash my hands of that. I'm absolved of that. That's not me because I didn't ship it directly.
How difficult is it? Because like, I mean, obviously there's so many different things out there now, right? Like all these food services you can get your meals from and all these different things. I ordered something from Goldbelly. I don't know if you've ever done that, but that was a little disappointing. I ordered it for my wife and the cookies we got weren't great. We should have ordered from you. It was a little before you were doing your thing, but I should have ordered from you.
Goldbelly. I've never heard of that, but it sounds intriguing.
It's like a food delivery service. So you can pretty much look up anything and everything. And I forgot where these cookies came from, but they were like cookie French fries. Like they were shaped like fries, but they were cookies and they had dipping sauce. They looked really good. They weren't that great, but it was a cool idea. And so like how difficult is it to like, say you want it like here in Sacramento, right? You wanted to ship it to someone in like LA or San Diego. Like, is there a lot that goes into it? Or is it basically like, do you have to do like a lot of like weird packing methods or anything like that? Or is it pretty straightforward?
Well, yes, absolutely. I mean, I guess it really depends on the person who's shipping the cookies. I like to make sure my cookies don't arrive broken. So I actually do go through the process of, I have these special bubble wrap, like 4x6 bubble wrap pouches. So I'll put each cookie into a bubble wrap pouch, wrap it up with some tape and foam so that each cookie is kind of like a little pillow. And then I put them all into like a box, whatever, depending on how many cookies they have, that's how big the box needs to be because there's so much cushion that's added to it. And then I have to also add some, like I reuse sometimes the Amazon Air pockets to make sure that when I pack it all up, when I shake it, there should not be a single cookie rattling in there. It should be so tight in that box that even when you toss it around, everything is just really tight and compacted. So I will say when I ship cookies, a lot does go into packaging. It's not just a matter of throwing cookies in a box and just saying goodbye to them, And so I really do make sure that when I ship them, they're packed and they're really tight and comfortable. And so far, I haven't had a single customer complain about any broken cookies that have arrived. So right now I'm pretty much on a good streak.
That's awesome. Well, it sounds like they're wearing football pads when you send them off. So that's probably smart. Because we've all got those packages from different, I'm not going to say any vendors. We have friends that work for these places, but you've all received like the packages and it's like, did you put this through a shredder before this thing arrived to me? Like what happened to this? So imagine like a cookie. That'd be so disappointing if someone got like just smashed, if Snoop Dogg's face was just crushed in this box of cookies, like it would be incredibly disappointing. So I'm sure they all appreciate the fact that you take so much time and effort, not just in the cookies, but also the shipping of them too.
I will say that the opening of those packages is probably work. But I mean, I think for how much these people are paying for these cookies, they don't mind putting in the work for making sure that they get a cookie intact.
Yeah. Sure. Just like send it like an armored truck with like 2 security guards. Like, here are your cookies. No one's touched them except for the cookie boss. It's the way to do it. Which also, can I just point out too, it's cool that you're called the cookie boss. Like she's just known as the cookie boss. How dope is that? I'm known as Josh. She's like, my name's Jas, but you can call me the cookie boss. It's like a cookie mobster.
A lot of people will actually approach me as like, hey, cookie boss, because They don't even know my name. In fact, when I first opened up my Instagram account, I don't know, it didn't dawn on me to actually put my like real name on there. And I just had the Cookie Boss. And I had gone to this event up at like this one, we have like these, sip and shop things happening all the time around here. And I had gone to one and some customers recognized me there because I have my face on my Instagram. So people know what I look like. And they just run up to me, they're like, oh my God, are you the Cookie Boss? And I tell you, I was like, I've made it in life. People are running, asking me, the Cookie Boss.
That is awesome. That's a huge compliment too, because you're like, for like, your followers or whatever, like, like you just made an order for one of your Instagram followers. That's huge. And that's awesome. And that's I bet it makes you feel so good just in terms of like, because you're passionate about it, and to share that with someone, with people, like you said, like your first real customer, back then, like off the street, like that, like that's a huge compliment, because then it's not just friends and family just still trying to support you, and not that they don't think that your cookies are amazing or beautiful, but yeah, sometimes it's just a good feeling. So that's awesome.
It's like validation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually had to ask for your name when I first reached out to you about this. I said, and I hate when I have to do it. It's like, so what's your real name? I know it's not Cookie, but maybe it is Cookie Boss. I don't know. If it's Cookie Boss, that'd be awesome too.
So it's pretty funny. In my Starbucks app, I actually have my name as the Cookie Boss. So whenever I go to Starbucks, if they have to call my name out, they're like, the Cookie Boss. And I just love it every time. And everybody that's in the shop actually turns around and looks like, who's the Cookie Boss? And sometimes awesome. I'll have my shirt with my Cookie Boss logo. It's an amazing way to pick up people in the coffee shop, and they're like, oh, you make cookies. I'm like, of course. You just heard that. You heard them call it the Cookie Boss.
That's amazing. It would be just an awesome flex on every other cookie if you walk into Crumble and put your name in as the Cookie Boss. It's like Cookie Boss. Like, oh, that's right. That's me. Sorry, I forgot I was in a cookie shop. That's what you should do.
Those fighting words right there.
I think so. But who's gonna mess with the Cookie Boss? What do you think about Crumble? Because I've seen like we're big fans of Crumble. I have seen some people recently that were not the biggest fans and they felt like it was overrated. You are the Cookie Boss, so I feel like your opinion is really the only one that matters. What do you think? Is Crumble, like, is it properly rated, overrated, underrated? Don't worry, we're not sponsored by Crumble either. I wish, but
I love a good Crumble cookie. My favorite one is just their regular sugar cookie with the pink icing on it, and it has to be. That is my favorite. John's favorite too. So, if I'm driving by a Crumble, I'll definitely stop by in there and grab like a cookie. I am not too proud. I'm not like, I'm the Cookie Boss, I can't go to Crumble. No, that does not exist. I am totally a Crumble cookie monster. One time they did make a tres leches cookie though, and I was just incredibly disappointed because I grew up in the East Bay. I know tres leches. Okay, it needs to be soaking. Like when I'm done eating that thing, there still needs to be some liquid in the pan. And their tres leches cookie, I mean, it just came with this little container with some kind of syrup or condensed milk, or I don't even know what it was. Probably wasn't even dairy now that I think about it. And I poured it over and I ate it, and it was just so dense and dry. So that was a little bit disappointing, but I shout out to Crumble for really trying to like be multicultural and bringing all these flavors. And I like that they change up their flavors all the time. That's pretty cool too. I'm not really a chocolate person at all. I don't really do chocolate flavors, so I can't really speak to their chocolate themed type of cookies, but their pink sugar cookie is one of my favorites. Oh, and then one time they also had a watermelon one, but that was like just a seasonal summer thing last year. That was really good. The watermelon cookie.
Interesting.
I'm glad I asked that question.
Yeah.
And did you hear that, Crumble? You disappointed the Cookie Boss one time. So just rethink your recipe and how you do things. Yeah. That's good.
If you're going to make it tres leches, bring the leche.
Yeah.
When you do your cookie flavors, do you have like, do you have like a set, like a menu of like, here's flavors to choose from? Or do people get to like request, hey, can you make, just throw like a cookies and cream cookie, or can you make like a chocolate cookie or a Butterfinger cookie? Like how do you get those requests, and how do you go about approaching the recipe?
So in my order form, I actually used to offer different types of icing flavors, and I had like cardamom, lavender, um, you know, uh, all kinds of flavors like chocolate, cinnamon, all the different flavors, lemon, different flavors. But now I just do vanilla sugar cookies because a lot of people weren't really choosing any flavors. So I just had all these extracts and all this extra ingredients that were just kind of sitting on my shelf, and no one was really ordering the flavored cookies for events. But for the pop-ups I do make drop cookies, which are like your regular like chocolate chip cookie or snickerdoodle, those types of cookies, not really the decorated ones. And for those cookies, I actually do have a lot of customers that will seek me out at my pop-ups because I make this brown butter chocolate chip cookie that has toffee and salt. It's really good. And some other flavors that I'm trying to explore and trying to kind of do experimenting with is ube, which is like that sweet potato yam, the purple one. Like, a lot of people, it's taro, so it's like the similar flavors. It's like a sweet nutty flavor. And then I'm also trying to make a cookie that's like a lychee flavored cookie. That's another Asian fruit. So I'm trying to experiment with flavors that I don't typically see out there that I want to kind of bring, to the community so that they can try them out. I don't really typically do flavors that are just kind of like, standard flavors. Sometimes I will if it's, if someone's asking for it, but most of the time my decorated sugar cookies are just vanilla. And then at the markets I try bringing in some flavors that, people normally probably wouldn't consider or try. It's not something you can just go grab at your local grocery store.
I love it.
Well, and I was going to mention too, on your Instagram, it clearly states that you do the vegan friendly options as well. Is that something you've done from the very beginning, or was that something that you started doing because a certain number of requests had started coming in?
So the vegan cookie, my grandma is such a drama queen.
Oh.
So my grandma, she's vegan by religion, and I'm supposed to be vegan too, but like I said, I'm not too religious, and I don't really follow my religion as closely as my grandma does. She's super old school. And so when I opened up my cookie business, I remember bringing cookies, to my mom's house and telling my mom, "Hey mom, I opened up this small business. I make cookies." And my grandma was there and she's like, "Oh, can I try some?" And I was like, "Oh, there's eggs in here because of the royal icing, and the cookie itself has eggs." And she doesn't even eat eggs, or like I said, she's vegan. So she got super offended and she's like, "You opened up a cookie business and you don't even make cookies that I can eat?" Because before that happened, I actually had gotten a couple of requests from people like saying, "Hey, do you make vegan cookies?" And I was like, "No, I don't really want to open up a can of worms and do that." But then my grandma, kind of called me out on it. And so then obviously I kind of sat back and I was like, dang, I have a business that I can't even like serve my grandma with. So then I went back to the drawing board and experimented a lot because, obviously when you don't use eggs and cookies and royal icing, it's just a completely different ball game. So then I, kind of came up with a recipe, and now I do offer the vegan option. And it's actually, it's not much more work on my end. It's just a different recipe. And I will tell you, I actually had my neighbors taste test it when I first created the recipe, and they told me that they actually preferred the taste of the vegan cookies to the regular standard recipe. So it's actually pretty interesting.
That is interesting.
How did you go about, you don't have to give away your recipe to everybody, but like, how did you go about finding that? Did you just like Google some things and try to like tweak it, or like, how did you go about trying to find the recipe?
Yeah, so it was just about finding alternatives. So a lot of people in the vegan world, they use, and I didn't even know this, and honestly, when I first read it, I was pretty grossed out. So what they do is they'll use the liquid in the container of chickpeas. It's called aquafaba. And that liquid that you normally pour out of the chickpeas can, that liquid is actually an alternative to egg whites. So yeah, and I didn't know that, because normally when I use chickpeas, all that liquid that's in there, I'm like, this is trash, but actually it's not. It's a great alternative to egg whites. So that's pretty much what I use as an alternative to the egg whites. And then in alternative to the butter, because again, you know, when you're in vegan, you can't use butter or eggs. Oat milk or almond milk is a really good alternative as well.
Nice. The chickpea juice. That is so interesting.
That is interesting.
That's crazy. Like you
There's
wouldn't
everything. Yeah.
That's crazy. That's
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about, I'm like, I want to try one. Maybe your taste testers as well. You could just.
Well, I'm sitting here kicking myself because I knew that this podcast was going to happen. I just have been so all over the place. I'm thinking like I should have sent you guys some cookies so you can eat them and give me like real-time feedback.
Oh, that would have been awesome. But I also understand too, because you don't know us, and it's like this podcast could suck. I don't want to give them my cookies. I understand. So I understand. It was probably a smart move on your part. I would have done the same thing. It's like, let's see how this goes first, and then maybe they can get some cookies. But if they're not that great, then you know, I'm not sending them nothing. I get it.
I totally think you guys are awesome. I have watched you guys, and I've been following you. You're talking about following me. I've been following you guys. You guys just are so amazing. You have this amazing voice that I can actually listen to. Sometimes you listen to podcasts and you just can't get into them because the people, you know, the voice is just not something that's resonating with you. But you guys are smooth operators.
Oh, thanks.
I might cry. I'm going to tell my wife that. You're like, you won't believe what Jas said about us. I'm going to tell her right when I get off the air here. Well, thank you very much. That was a very kind thing to say.
Yeah. I purposefully can't listen back to these podcasts because I don't want to hear my own voice. So thanks.
And I have to edit it, so I have no choice. I've gotten used to them. I'm like, yeah, we're okay. We're not great with the voice thing, but I'm stuck doing it. So now, you know, I'm just like you know, callous to my own voice. So my poor wife, I'm like, geez, this is what she listens to all the time. That sucks. Feel for her. Are there plans of getting, like, have you ever considered using like I don't know, I forgot the name of it, like those like industrial like rental kitchens? Have you considered doing that, or not quite there yet?
There is actually, I think you're talking about a place like 24-hour kitchens. There's one out, I think it's Fair Oaks or something. And I have actually looked into it. It's you know, I think about like the drive over there, and I'm such a lazy person. Like I think to myself, the kitchen's right here. Why would I drive all the way out, you know, 30 minutes one way, you know, taking all my ingredients out there. So I don't think I've gotten there yet because like I said, the orders I work on, they're custom orders. I haven't 200 cookies I could do in my kitchen, but if it was something like that, 5,000 cookie order, I would definitely rent some time out because, you know, they have the ovens that are like the commercial grade. They have the doors with multiple racks.
Right.
So, insanity. I think at this point, if I were to get an order that big, I would certainly, you know, take some time to rent a few hours, you know, in one of those commercial kitchens. They're open all the time. So it would work flexible with my regular daily schedule.
Yeah, that's what the cookie boss would say. You're like 5,000, no problem. I'm just gonna rent out the 24-hour kitchen thing. I got it, no problem. So like that, I mean, that's crazy. That would freak me out. Well, obviously that's why I'm not the cookie boss, but I'd be like, oh, it's too many. Can you take a zero off of that number? And I'll do that. Like
I don't think I've ever turned away anyone for too many cookies. And if there ever was a situation where it was too many cookies for me to handle because maybe other existing orders or something else going on in my life, I am totally like collaborative. I would just bring in some other bakers that, you know, are local and say, hey, you want to split this order for me? We'll split the profit and let's go both at it. Because even right now, if someone comes to me with an order and I don't have the capacity to take it, I never turn away anyone just with the straight no. I usually tell them, I can't take this order because I'm at capacity, but I have like a sister baker that I can refer you to. Do you want me to check in with them and see if they have availability? Because, you know, it makes me so happy to see other people thriving in our community too. And just like I'm doing a small business, and I see other bakers do, you know, running their small businesses. I want to see us all thrive and support each other. So I'm not one of those people where I'm like, well, I can't take the order and I'm not going to refer you to someone else because then you're going to, you know, be someone else's customer. I'm not like that. I'm like, if I can't take the order, let me see who else can help out with it. And, you know, it'll be a win-win. The customer gets their cookies. You know, I have a friend that gets business. Everyone's happy.
Well, I feel like I had an issue like that a little while ago with this weird car situation that my family had. We were out of town, we got stuck, and we had to find a auto repair shop. And I called the first one; they couldn't take it, and they did refer us to another shop without hesitation. And I always
Yeah.
felt like that stuck out to me and my wife, because like, oh, that says a lot about the person in the shop who referred us so quickly. It was like, they weren't trying to figure out a way to squeeze us in and make it work so they could profit from it. They're like, no, this is not going to work. Let's make sure we help these people though. And so I feel like that's a cool thing that you're willing to do, because not everybody's like that, especially in these more competitive spaces where, it can potentially get cutthroat. And the fact that you're doing that, I imagine, I mean, no pun intended, leaves a good taste in people's mouth, um,
He was
when they deal with you. So, so yeah, no, I think that's awesome. I want to make sure we're respectful of your time. I have one more question for you, Deb. I don't know how many more questions you have. I do have one more question for you. Um, obviously, I think at the very beginning of this, you had mentioned your son, when you first started doing cookies, your son wanted like a video game themed cookie. And so you started doing it. I imagine that you constantly have to kind of have your finger on the pulse of the culture, what's popular. I imagine like when a new movie comes out, so it's like these like Marvel movies, right? Superhero movies. Every time one comes out, it's like, all right, here we go. Better get that mold made, because I know I'm going to get a bunch of cookies in this shape. Like, how often are you just like on social media, reading articles, checking out what's popular, just to kind of stay engaged with everything that could be coming your way?
all the time,
Yeah.
literally all the time, because
Yeah.
these cookie orders, it's crazy to me that the same themes kind of follow suit. If I'm making a cutie is on its way, like a baby shower theme. I think last year it was very popular that everybody's baby shower theme was a cutie is on their way, and like the orange cutie, the little tangerine cutie. So
Yeah.
I was so many of those, and I became like an expert at it. And then all of a sudden, we move into like the different themes, and that's kind of what I find interesting is all these themes, I feel like, are very popular at the same time. So then it just kind of becomes like, that's what I'm doing for that season, because everybody wants to have the same theme. But yeah, usually sometimes um, if there's some style or something moving faster than I can kind of keep up with like creating a cookie cutter or something like that, I'll just hand cut it. So a lot of times cookies that I make are seriously one of a kind, because I don't even create a cookie cutter for it. I just I create like I draw a stencil on paper, cut it out with scissors, put it on my dough, and cut it out with like an X-Acto knife. So that's like a real custom cookie, because it's something that somebody wants, that's uh, just kind of off the cuff, where I don't really feel like I need to create a cookie cutter for it, because it's not something I'm going to mass produce. So it's just really anything. I mean, I really do try staying relevant though, so that I can make sure that I'm not able to meet someone's expectation if they have an expectation for a certain theme or character or whatever the case is.
Yeah, that makes sense, man. See, it doesn't just end with the making and designing the cookies. It's like this constant research process, then making the cookies, the business side of things. It sounds like just like a crazy, crazy life. Good for you though. A lot of people benefit from it, so we appreciate you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Jazz, do you sleep at all? Like, I don't know all the things you do. Holy cow.
Yeah, I'm getting better at it. And my son is 8 years old now, but he still needs me to lay with him at night. So usually I'm trying to get in bed with him. And sometimes I'll actually end up falling asleep in his bed and doze off with him. So I think that's still a benefit, that I'm still tucking him in, because then I end up, tucking myself in.
Yeah.
See there.
Yeah.
Well, and like you said earlier, you have a bunch of doctors in your family that are just like, hey, constantly on you for the sleep. So between the doctors giving you a hard time about the sleep and the grandma giving you a hard time about the vegan cookies, like you have a bunch of people trying to keep you accountable. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm not the cookie boss. I'm like the cookie, tell her what to do.
Hey,
No,
well, you know
you,
what? To us, you're the cookie boss still.
yeah. Yeah. Um, I have so many more questions.
We always do. We
I
always
know.
do.
Okay, well, so here's a question that I always like to end with too, is that if anyone who's listening, because I know that there's someone listening who even if it's not maybe the cookie business they want to go into, but they're like this close into thinking, should I, shouldn't I, should I try, should I just dip my toe in it and see what happens, because it is, as you know, it's a lot of time, effort, work, and there's obviously the it's almost my bedtime. There's obviously the fear of failure. That's what I was trying to say. Fear of failure. So what advice do you have for anyone who is like on the edge of trying something new? Like, what helped you, I guess, through that process of just going for it?
I've always thought for a few years that I've always wanted to have a business. I didn't know what it was going to be. If you would have asked me, do you imagine yourself having a cookie business? I would have told you you're crazy. But I remember always thinking like, I want to have some kind of business where I'm my own boss and I'm really driving, kind of driving the ship. I say do it. If anyone's even on the fence, if there's anyone thinking about doing something, just do it, because the alternative is you're just going to be where you already are right now. On the adverse side, if you try it and it actually ends up taking off, well, now you're on this whole new adventure, and you're bringing a service or a product or some kind of difference to people around you and to the community, and sharing what you have to share. I think that everybody has something that they can I think you said it earlier, Deb, it's not about a timeline. There's no timeline on finding or identifying what it is within yourself that's your passion that you can find some way to, bring out to the community. It could be now, you could recognize it in 10 years. But I think that the important thing is once you do recognize it, even if it's kind of just like this little whisper in the back of your mind, grab a hold of it and really take a chance on yourself. Because if you don't take a chance on yourself, no one else is going to do that. So I think that that's the most important thing, is just act on it.
Love it. That's perfect. Hopefully someone listening to that is just like, yep, I'm going to do it. I'm doing it, because do it. Yeah. Because it is scary doing something new, especially like if it's going to take up a lot of your time. It's just, I could get into the whole thing. We could have a whole separate podcast on that, on like getting
my son, when he doesn't want to do his homework, I'm like, the time is going to pass. You're either going to sit there and stare at a wall, or you're going to do your homework, and then when the time passes, you're going to be done. The time is going to pass regardless. So do something with it.
I love that. So Jas, really quick, not to make the end of this podcast about me, but like, I'm a high school PE teacher and we are almost done with school. And I have some kids who are like, I'm like, dude, you're going to fail if you don't pick it up now, and so I love that. I'm going to try to remember that so I can give them a speech tomorrow or sometime this week. So thank you for that. Anyway. Okay.
That's amazing. High school's tough. So I bet.
Maybe I should give them some cookies, the cookie boss, and they motivate them.
I was like, have Jas come in and give the speech for you with some cookies. You'll be set for the rest of the school year.
Be like, hey, if you pass this class, you get some cookies.
I'm always armed with cookies.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, this has been a lot of fun. Like Deb said, we could go on forever, and we easily could do it, because we love to talk, and we love to talk to awesome people. But like I said, we want to make sure we're respectful of your time, because we know you're busy with all kinds of things. So before we get out of here, where can people follow you on social media, websites? How can they order some awesome cookies? All of those things.
So I'm on Instagram. My handle is cookie_boss_EDH. The EDH obviously stands for El Dorado Hills, where I'm based in. And my website is www.thecookiebossedh.com.
Nice. Now, are you currently taking orders, or are you kind of like in that, like you said earlier, that space where you're not currently taking any in? That makes sense?
Well, right now I have a little bit of availability for graduation orders, like in the month of June.
Oh, yeah.
May, sometimes I could move some orders around, but usually I tell people my calendar's closed. I will say definitely for July forward, I'm looking pretty open. So I usually ask folks to give me about 8 weeks notice in advance. So that's usually the best likelihood of securing your date, is an 8-week advance notice minimum.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's good. Well, no, that's good information, because I don't know, in my head, I'd be like, hey, Jas, can you make like 100 cookies like next weekend for me? You know, like I don't know. We don't know. I don't know as a cookie,
100
like
mermaids. Gross.
I do people for sure, but usually I have some people that have already booked me for next year because they already know their event, they have their wedding date booked. So I don't really have any limitations on how far I book out, but for a minimum notification, at least 8 weeks advance notice. That's the minimum notification, but you can book me out as far as you want.
Awesome. That's good to know.
Perfect. You guys have been warned. So don't be surprised if she's like, I can't do this right now because you gave me 2 days. So you guys have all been warned. So Jas, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for doing this and taking some time out of your busy schedule to chat with us. And we're just excited to see just what you continue to do and then all of the exciting things you have coming up with the nonprofit and all of that. So we definitely appreciate you and we appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Stay sweet, guys.
Thanks for watching the show. If you enjoyed that episode, make sure you like it, share it, and hit the subscribe button to get a new episode every week. We'll see you next time on the Connectable podcast.